Thanks for agreeing to have a chat with us. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, and thank you, Erika, very much for the invitation. I look forward to our chat.
Thank you. So I would like for you, if you could, to start talking about yourself and your background. Take your time, and that would be great for the public to know a little bit about you.
Sure. So my name, as it shows there, is Mona Bajaj-Elliott, and I'm an associate professor at Great Ormond Street Institute of Child Health, which is a department of University College London. And I have been an academic here for more than 20 years and quite a bit of time. And before I came here, my interest was really in cancer, and I worked in industry. But once I came and became, got my academic position, I got really interested in gut health. So I worked on clinical conditions like inflammatory bowel disease, celiac disease. But what really interested me was, and which made me feel very passionate, that, until we had COVID, there were at least almost 5 million children die every year of infections.
Okay.
And they're mainly lung and diarrheal diseases. And I just felt very, very much that, this is unacceptable, in the 21st century, that children are still dying of, conditions that we thought we had sorted. So I've spent the last 15, 20 years working on infections, different infectious agents, but you can't study just the bad guys, which are, these agents. But now in the last 10, 15 years, technology is telling us a lot of good guys there as well, which is, of course, the microbiome. So I had to join in the microbiome community as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And you saw that it was relevant that the good guys were involved in these conditions as well, and that drew your attention.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think we had just had COVID, recently we talk about big diseases, malaria, TB, but if you really think about it, that's where all the clinical medicine is. You go into a hospital because, you got food poisoning or something horrible. Yeah. But if you start counting how many of these bad guys are out there, and actually not that many, 20, 30, maybe. Yeah. And yet we are now learning that we got at least almost 1 trillion bacteria in a healthy gut. Yeah. And when I was doing my calculation of what 1 trillion bacteria is, the world's population is about 8-9 billion. Yeah. So 1 trillion is 100 times the world's population.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that many microbes in one person's gut. So 30, 40 infectious agents are actually not that, So the question now is that we understand what the bad guys do to us, but we really need to understand what all these other guys who are sitting there silently, what do they do to our health? And I think it's becoming, technology has helped a lot, of course. And, now we are starting to, try to understand them a little bit better. But I have to say, we are still at the start of this journey. Yeah. How do you study trillion microbes, right?
Yeah. And what
how many jobs will they be doing? So, but it is an exciting time. So I think, it's great. So that is the microbes that live with us on us. And like I said, this is a new field because of technology. But if you really think about it, we have always used microbes throughout man's history, like in the food industry.
Yes.
What's a mother culture when we want to make bread?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Cheese making, wine making, fermented food, yogurt.
They've always been around. We always use them, manipulated them. Yeah,
absolutely. But, I think so. One of the big scientists, Bulgarian scientists, a century ago, realized and made an observation that in Bulgaria, the maids, they have a lot of yogurt, and their complexions were very nice.
Yes.
And also those communities had a very long lifespan. So, there was some good things happening, and people have started to recognize. But it's becoming much more scientific now. That's absolutely. So you asked me, what is the human microbiome? So just give that definition.
That's the next question, because there's many of them, and they are actually the ones in running the show instead of that small group of bad guys, as you mentioned. Yeah. But though they are so important, there are so many of them. We really feel that, and I really feel that people don't really know about them.
Yeah, that is very, very true.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, I mentioned the trillions in the gut because that's where all the food goes. So,
yeah,
microbes also want to eat. But any body surface of ours that faces the environment, microbes will come and live on.
yeah, yeah.
And well, let's start with the
Absolutely.
skin. We think we're always using deodorants, under the armpits and soaps and cleaning ourselves, but we are playing around with unnatural microbes on our tissue.
Absolutely,
Yeah, which is again
absolutely.
interesting.
Which comes now to the second question.
Oh, okay.
You tell us and explain to us, what is the human microbiome?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we have microbes that live on our skin, and so of course the environment of the skin is different than the mouth because your skin is getting the sunlight. So microbes that like the sunlight will live on your skin. They can't live inside your body because they need sunlight. So the communities of microbes that live on different surfaces, like the skin, in the mouth, in the gut further down, in the nose, are quite different.
Yep.
So when we say human microbiome, I guess in general, we mean all these different communities, all these different tissues. So we have actually now we say it a bit more specialized. We'll say skin microbiome. We'll say oral microbiome for the mouth, for example. So it really microbiome in that context means, if I say oral microbiome, all the different communities of microbes that live in a particular, like an ecosystem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like, when we talk about ecosystem, we think about the Amazon, what
yeah,
plants grow in the Amazon, are very different compared to a desert, so it's those ecosystems,
yeah,
very unique in their functions as well,
yeah.
and since I mentioned the word microbiome, I think it's just nice for all of us to know that, we're told brush your teeth twice a day. What is
Yes,
this? Yeah. What is this plaque? It's
yeah,
microbes,
yeah,
No,
yeah,
without, and subconsciously we are, you know, playing with them in our
yeah.
daily lives, aren't we? And bad
Absolutely.
breath after if you eat garlic, bad breath. You say, "Oh God, what is that?" Those are the kind of microbes that make that your breath bad. So
Yes, yeah,
we cannot. They are just exist on us, and we
yeah,
can't we don't live in a sterile environment.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely.
So
And
I
it's
mean, I
very
think
important, right, for
yeah,
people to understand this idea that we don't need to be obsessed with getting rid of microbes all the time, because also they have their functions. We are not in a sterile world, and we are not sterile ourselves, right?
yeah.
So we need to stop obsessing with just keeping everything way too clean. I'm not saying that we should go completely dirty, but
Well, yeah, no. That's a very fair question you're asking, but just on that point of how much dirt versus clean, it's
Mm,
been known for since the 1980s when it first came out, hygiene hypothesis, which I'm
yeah,
sure you've heard of, that the cleaner you are as a baby, the more allergies you get.
allergies you have. Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
And that's very common in Nordic countries. Whereas
yeah,
if you go to places like India, where I'm originally from, things obviously are changing. But when I was a child, I've never met anyone with allergies, and because you just played, you were allowed to go and play, and have a bit of soil as a child. You'll, get your hands dirty, you'll put them in your mouth, and
yes,
it's actually quite good looking back. You're actually teaching your body
yeah,
to
yeah.
start recognizing all these different microbes. And I think because if you don't, this is your immune system. If it's too sleepy and silent, and it
Yeah.
never sees things, then becomes overreactive. Yeah.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
it's like education, and I think that's what microbes do, and that's why in where you have lots of infections, coming back to infections or
Mhm.
agents, whether Africa, India, places, overcrowding, there are less allergies, surprisingly.
Yeah, I'm from Brazil, and I love that you're talking about that, because you see the difference in children, back home in Brazil and here in Europe, because everyone is so obsessed with cleanliness and everything is so clean that the immune system is bored, and
Yeah.
these kids have so many allergies. And back home, it's like, allergies, what?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I mean, like you said about being obsessive about cleaning,
Yeah.
um, I was actually getting a little bit concerned during COVID and lockdown because we were washing our hands, 5 times an hour, and you think, oh no, because have you ever met anybody who ever have you ever met anyone who gets infections on their palms?
I know, never. Yes, I know.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
is because when we sweat, yeah,
yeah.
and that contains our own body's antibiotics. There's a reason for it,
Yeah.
right? And that's
Fascinating.
yeah, yeah. I mean, microbes like moist environments. It's an armpit, for example. Uh, and but we don't usually get infections there because our in our sweat,
So
we,
true.
yeah, and our tears, for example, there are lots of good things that are fighting these microbes. And like I said, have you ever seen anyone with their palms
No,
infected?
yes.
Yeah. So if you wash it too much, too much, too much, you're actually getting rid of your antibiotics. Yeah,
Wow, this
yeah.
is
So
good.
so
I love.
again, you're again changing the ecosystem. Yeah,
Yes,
the
absolutely.
balance.
This is so interesting. I think this is very important. I'm learning here a lot. I just wish I could do like 10 podcasts with you.
Oh well, we can meet on a regular basis for chats. That's
I would
okay.
love that. Have a cup of tea.
Yeah, yeah, that
Okay,
sounds wonderful. Yeah, so
let's.
basically, you asked about human microbiome. Every animal species, every plant species have got their own microbiome. You know,
Yeah,
yeah. But human, yes. But then you have when you say human, you can call it skin, or your oral or your lung microbiome. And then of course one of the most important one in ladies, the vaginal
yeah,
microbiome,
yeah,
because the newborn baby will come through the birth canal.
yeah.
And you might want to say, Mona, where do these microbes come from?
From
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Oh, we
So
will get into that in a bit.
okay. So did you have that in mind? Okay, good.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Um, so I guess I was going to ask you what inspired you to focus your research on the microbiome, but I think you've answered that question. But do you have anything else to add?
Oh no, because I work in a clinical environment.
Yeah.
And one of the conditions which I think is, yes, I'm very happy to share, is children with cancer, leukemia.
Yes.
And they our hospital is a specialist place and they do 100 transplants a year. And basically, when you come in with cancer of your immune cells, you either get chemotherapy, radiotherapy to kill off your immune system,
Yeah.
but if you have no immune system, you are then, of course, microbes can. There's nothing to fight with them. They can infect you,
Yeah.
so you don't get infections. Doctors give you lots and lots of antibiotics, right? And so you're having lots of chemotherapy, you're having lots of antibiotics, but the antibiotics do two things. Good, they are not going to give you an infection because you
Yeah.
want to live.
Yeah.
But two, they also kill all the good bacteria from your gut.
Yeah.
So I have, I can say it that I cannot think of any other clinical condition where the gut is completely emptied of microbes,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? In real life, yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's true.
these children are very young. Some of them are having transplant of a donor's immune system from the age of 6 months.
Yeah.
So I've seen them from 6 months to 14 years. And when you see a little baby, it's heart wrenching. And
Can imagine, yeah.
yeah,
As a new
yeah,
mom, to
yeah,
hear
the
that.
new moms. Oh, absolutely. And then they so okay, they're having all these medications. It can't be helped. And then they get the new donor's immune system. The problems then begin because the immune system comes in. There are no microbes anymore, so they can't talk to each other.
Yeah.
But you can't have microbes in a hospital because it'll kill the patient. So it's like
Yeah. It's
a very tricky situation, and a lot of these patients end up staying for even a year in hospital. So can you imagine a parent family of with your sibling being in a one isolated room for a year?
yeah.
And I just felt very, very, and the mortality death rate is quite high,
Yeah.
about 15-20%. And in that case, the one of the main reasons for a death is when the new immune system starts attacking the gut. Okay, and
Oh,
that's a
attacking The gut.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it recognizes the immune system that's gone into the body recognizes the patient as foreign, so it starts
Yeah,
attacking.
yeah. The tissues and the
Yeah,
cells
yeah,
that
yeah,
person,
yeah,
the who
exactly.
got, who received that
Yeah,
new
yeah.
immune system
New
is,
immune system, yeah.
yeah,
And so the new immune system is overreactive, and microbes play a good role in, like I said,
coming down.
when damping it down, but there are no microbes there, you can't have them. So this condition is called graft versus host disease.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you get it in the gut, that's almost the outcome is very adverse and not very pleasant. So I feel it's a mission that we must help these patients in terms of what can we do to help them. But it's a very tricky,
It is.
double-edged
Yeah,
sword.
yeah,
The immune system alone can become active, destroy your gut. But if you bring microbes in, they can cause infection, and that could kill them. So that's where my
even the the commensal bacteria that
yeah,
would
because
normally be
yeah,
part of the flora that could as well be
yeah,
opportunistic.
absolutely. I mean, we'll talk maybe hopefully about probiotics later on. The problem is because these patients are on such big medication, the gut lining, which is very, very thin, which
Yeah,
keeps the body away from the environment,
yeah,
it becomes leaky.
yeah,
So so bacteria can go in, and once they enter your blood, but the body can't tell it's a good bacteria or a bad. It's in your
yeah,
blood, it'll attack.
yeah. And
Okay, so yeah,
sepsis.
that's
And,
sepsis, absolutely.
yeah,
So that's my first love of where I want to improve things.
of
But of
course.
course, being in a pediatric place, I've also done some work on cow's milk allergy. So the interest is in,
Yeah,
what keeps a child healthy and what happens when things go wrong.
yeah. And
Yeah.
very interesting. How, but I do wonder, how do you manage then because I believe those kids, a weapon that they can use to recover would be their gut microbiome.
Yeah.
And how are you managing that? How are you repopulating that gut?
Well, the ideas are still in the experimental stage,
Okay.
but the way I think the future is going to be is two things. One is that normally babies, because they're so ill, they are being fed through the blood. The
Yeah,
nutrition is going this way. But I think what we might have to do is divide the nutrition two ways. What is needed for the child's health through the blood, whereas what we might need for the good microbes should go through the mouth. Does it make
absolutely
sense? Yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Because some of the food we eat, some sugars, invite the bad guys. So I
Yeah,
don't want a patient to be taking sugar, or even a healthy person taking too much
yeah,
sugar
yeah,
through the mouth, because we know it
yeah.
actually is not good for you because it invites the wrong kind of microbes in your gut.
It's
Yeah,
quite a challenge, right? Because it's
absolutely.
repopulating, I guess, with the good guys. It's bringing the prebiotics through, normal ways of eating too, so they can grow. But at the same time, if the kid has a leaky gut,
Yeah,
you also need to be cautious with that. I
yeah.
mean,
No, no,
challenge.
it's really a tough. It's a tricky one. Yeah.
Very
Um,
well.
yeah.
Amazing. Wow.
Well, I mean, I will be delighted to update you when we get some more interesting.
Absolutely. Okay. So, okay, let's go to the next question, which is I know you talk about children's health and their microbiome. Do you see a difference between a kid's microbiome and the adult? If you could talk to us a little bit
Yeah,
about that.
sure, sure. Um, I mean, as we mentioned earlier about the mum's vaginal microbiome, that is the first thing the baby will encounter upon birth.
Yeah.
And there'll be some swallowing going on, and those are the first microbes that go in. And because the vaginal canal is very close to the gastrointestinal canal, there might be some mixing at birth, so the baby will get some gut microbes as well, um, which is fine, and that is completely acceptable because those are the first. So what we are learning is that are particular microbes do a good job when they arrive first.
Okay.
Yeah. However, just as an example for cesarean sections, then the first microbes the baby's mouth will encounter, they'll swallow, will be from the skin, or was in the hospital environment, for example. And that they could be quite different from what might be present in the vagina. And we do know that there are some early differences that happen, but you can't help that. This is part of life. There might be other additional complications if a baby is born preterm versus term, and the reason is that during gestation your immune system is developing, but in preterm it's not completely developed. So that adds another layer of complexity, which microbes will come in. Remember, there are, it's two sides of a coin. Microbes and the immune system, together, they move together. But science is making great progress. So there are some very big positives. But we also have to learn from real life, experiments going on. For example, moms that breastfeed. Breast milk is actually surprisingly quite a complex solution, if I can say. Which is absolutely incredible. It just shows how evolution over time is optimized for, it's just like, wow, nature, nature. So there's a particular group of food already in the milk, these oligosaccharides, which are very complex. And so in mum's milk, for example, there are at least 150 different types of these complex, 150 to 200.
Wow.
Us scientists in the lab have not been able to make them in the lab. They're so complex. Right. In comparison, cow's milk only has 20 or 30 of the same.
Wow. This is very interesting.
So, why, a calf is all, will have its mother's milk. Its body's pretty complicated, but human milk obviously has got additional, and that is what we refer to as a prebiotic, the food
for the microbes.
So when that food goes in, the right microbes, either the mum's milk is also carrying those microbes.
Did you? Is that have you found that out, that actually there are microbes in the mum's milk?
So we have a young company set up here in our department called Microbiome, and they are looking for breast milk microbes, and they want to improve the first nutrition given to a baby. I said preterm, some very ill babies in hospital. And so they're trying to get this combination together of the pre and the food and the microbe together.
And it's being challenged to actually get the microbes, or is it the oligosaccharides? Which one is more challenging to make it or to get?
The oligosaccharides.
Really, in the lab. Really,
because once there is food, the microbes will find it.
Wow.
Okay? They're universal. If you look at your bread, if you leave it outside, it goes stale or milk goes off. What is that? So microbes will always find the food. Okay. Wow. The problem is, the challenge is, you might have the microbes sleeping in your gut or in a new baby, but if the right oligosaccharides are not there, the food, they can't multiply and grow. It's a simple way of saying it, but they need that food. And what's beautiful is that we humans, or a baby's gut, or we can't actually break it down, these oligosaccharides. We need the microbes to do it.
Wow.
And then the microbes will come in and they'll make lots of nice goodies, and we can get the business. Then it works for us. And I think one thing I would have not appreciated so far in gut health is, what is this job these microbes do? And that is really, they do lots of things that we cannot do ourselves. So we're completely reliant on them. There's some vitamins we can't make as humans.
Yes.
I'll mention later, one of my favorite amino acids is tryptophan. Which is involved in brain health. And again, we humans can't break it down. Can you believe it?
No. No.
So this heavy
Well,
reliance,
it's a
yeah,
precursor, just for so everyone knows, for the neurotransmitters that will control your moods, that make you happy, the focus, that was very important for your mental health.
yeah,
So your microbes will actually break down tryptophan.
yeah,
Wow.
to make serotonin, to make melatonin, which is involved in sleep,
Yeah,
and I mean, if we are talking about, anxiety and sleep, you
yeah,
know, suddenly we have this huge mental health problem, in the last 5 years. So my question is it genetics? Has your genes changed in 5 years that you
no,
suddenly have mental health issues? Of
yeah,
course not. So it's
yeah,
some, I mean, some cases, of course, if you have some real serious,
of course, yeah, yeah,
schizophrenia and, other, of course, but for an average person on a street, what's happened? COVID happened. We are- But
yeah,
what has changed? So it's something environmental.
yeah,
Yes, it's not your genetic. So the good news is if it's environmental, maybe we can change it back rather
absolutely,
rather than going on, big drugs.
absolutely.
Yeah. So, and I think that is makes it very hopeful. That we can do.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Because sometimes when we're talking about mental health, it's easy to feel hopeless. And that perspective is very good because let's be honest, I think the microbiome in the population in general really took a hit recently. I think every patient I spoke with, for example, from Brazil, they were taking so many antibiotics that I'm pretty sure there was nothing left. And unfortunately, most of them did pass. And so there is a relationship there, but I would talk to colleagues who are clinicians as well in intensive care, and I was talk about microbiome and probiotics. It's,
Mhm.
I think they've listened out of respect,
Yeah.
but they would be like, oh, what are you talking about?
Mhm. Mhm. No, no, I completely understand their point of view. When you have a very unwell patient,
Yeah,
then they want to save that patient's antibiotics.
yeah,
Um, and it's a dilemma. And you think, oh, but you're destroying the good microbes. You're going to delay their recovery. But depends how serious
the
situation.
infection. Yeah,
Yeah, I think what I would like to say to you today is that is I think of clinical situation as much more unique environment.
yeah,
Yeah, the role of
yeah.
the microbiome, for the
The
general public
population.
also needs to be,
Yeah,
made aware. I mean, you mentioned antibiotics, just made me think, how do we change the culture if a mom with a newborn baby who's coughing or sneezing goes to the GP and says, please give me antibiotics because my baby is not well. And well, you're the clinician, I'm not.
yeah. Because
Because
well,
yeah,
it has to come from the moms. This is why I'm so
yeah,
passionate about this, because I haven't taken any antibiotics. Thank God I didn't need it when I was pregnant, and my child hasn't had any at all.
mm, good.
But because I've been working hard to make sure she doesn't need it, because
Mm,
if she needs it, if we need it to save her life, of course we're going to give her
yeah,
antibiotics. But I know it's so important right now, especially in the beginning of her life, and then so her microbiome is stable. And then we'll go back to the initial question, because the difference between the gut microbiome that's forming in early childhood and adult,
yeah.
I think this early years, I believe, is very important. And thank God we haven't had
Mm,
antibiotics. But
yeah.
it's important. I think not too long ago, I would, as a clinician myself, anything was just, okay, antibiotics here and there.
Mm. No, no, no. I mean, what you're doing is the right thing, of course. Just to add, I mean, children have come into a new world, encountering so many microbes and new things that the immune system must react.
Yeah.
It can't just sit there quietly. And then if the child is slightly unwell, that's okay because you're educating the immune system. It has to work.
Yeah.
So rather than taking too many medications, have a little bit of a cold, a fever, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
um, because that's the natural response that, fever is good because now your body's really fighting, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think we're always trying to put it down all the time and worrying about is I think unnecessary for the general public. If you are healthy overall, you
Yeah.
know, that's what I would say.
Yeah.
You mentioned about between infant and adult.
Yeah.
So what we do know is that, which is sort of interesting, that it takes at least 2 to 3 years of early life before your immune system settles down
Okay.
into it starts looking more like an adult.
Okay.
Yeah,
The immune
and
system.
the immune system and the
Okay.
microbiome as well at the same time.
Okay. Always
I mean,
together.
yeah, together. Because remember, the immune system has actually evolved, or it's there to fight microbes,
Yeah.
right? It did not evolve to cause autoimmunity. We have autoimmune diseases because the immune system is overactive, or
Yeah.
give you asthma. That's not what its purpose is in real life. In real
Exactly.
life, the immune system is to fight microbes, but it needs time to realize and understand some microbes are good. I must not fight them.
Yeah.
They are my friend. Whereas the ones that are bad, I must do something. It's a little bit like food. You've had lunch today and breakfast. How many different types of food have we eaten?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the gut immune system has to realize this is normal, good things. I should not make an allergic reaction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But each food is different. So it takes time for that education to happen.
To happen. Okay.
Yeah. Um, and yes, we do have peanut allergy we hear about, things or seashell, with prawns, for example. So touch wood, there are still only few foods that gives allergy. Like I said, infections. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, we eat, we eat whatever we can buy, almost, correct?
Yes. Yes. A little bit.
Yeah. So if you have no touch wood, less antibiotic use, let the microbiome start to get to know. It's like dating with the immune system
Yeah.
and the microbiome
Yeah.
together. And the more they like each other and become friends, which is good, as they go along. And then they reach a sort of a structure or community, which then stays almost throughout life after
Okay.
the age of 4 or 5.
4 or 5. Okay.
Yeah, something, yeah. And but as scientists or researchers, what this also tells us is that to improve a child's health, let's say they were not breastfed, they had a cesarean. What we do know is that this early time microbiome in the first 2 3 years is now, the evidence is coming slowly. It's really important, or has played a role in why we are having childhood obesity. That's a new condition. Yeah. Um, Increase in asthma. Okay, we have more pollutants, but just in general, we're coming
Yeah.
new diseases in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
There are lots of issues or delayed development, cognitive development if you are born early. But one big player is the microbiome.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so we are having new challenges in health, but the one advantage we have is in that window of opportunity while it's still developing, maybe we can give some intervention, which
Yeah.
could be probiotic or
Yeah.
whatever new, to just change the direction of travel.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
yeah. Whereas once you become an adult, then it becomes a bit more difficult because it's
Okay.
stable. It's sort of settled. Those trillion microbes are sitting in my
Okay.
gut.
So
Yeah.
let's just see if I understood. So that until a kid is 4, 5,
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
window there because the microbiome is, it's being established and the immune system is, learning how to
Yeah.
manage things.
Yeah.
But after that, it's pretty much stable and it will
Yeah.
react to the immune system will react or not, and and also to manipulate or change that gut microbiome becomes a bit more tricky.
Yeah. It's just that, if let's say I've got a healthy gut and I've got, like I said, trillions of microbes there. Yeah. Each one doing their job, hopefully. But
Okay.
then if I, then say, oh, but, let me take 1 billion probiotic now in my, because
Yeah.
it'll improve my health. 1 billion is a very small proportion of 1 trillion.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
Yeah.
So they might not find, remember, if you just think of the gut as space to live,
Yeah.
if all the houses are full, you're not going to find accommodation.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Right? So where these prebiotics, probiotics work, the reason that, intervention in a child is, A, is developing, B, the whole space is still not filled up like an adult's gut. So there
Oh,
is
I see.
room as well. Yeah. And
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay.
Whereas once you are an adult, most of the space hopefully is taken up by good guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what happens is, since you mentioned antibiotics, what do antibiotics do? They empty half the homes, right?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
make space.
To make
And that
space.
space, then, if you are a smart bad guy, you will
Yeah.
run forward and get in there first.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Wow.
a race. Yeah. It's a
Very
race.
interesting. I never thought about the physical space
Mm,
where
mm.
this is very interesting. Wow. I'm loving this
Yeah.
conversation, by the way. Oh my God.
I'm sorry, I'm talking in simple terms, but that's
I love
exactly that's what's happening at a high research level. You
yeah,
know.
but
Okay.
great.
I mean, in that example, one of the just for a minute, if we move all the way to old age, go to the 70s, 80s, or in
Yeah.
care homes, one of the biggest challenges they have now is the people get lots of antibiotics because they're elderly or whatever, and they make a lot of space in the gut. And one of the infections you, as a doctor, most probably are aware of is C. difficile.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a very, very nasty microbe.
Oh
It
yeah.
it normally lives in the air as spores, so you can't kill it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't kill it with ethanol sprays, and that's why it's a problem in hospitals, for example, and it spreads. But once it gets inside the gut, it is so smart. Even one microbacteria can make 3 different toxins.
Oh my
Three?
God.
Why?
Yeah.
Why do you want to make 3? Why is one not enough?
It's very, very nasty. The patient
It's
is
very so it
isolated. Really.
completely destroys the gut, and
Yeah.
it's been a real cause of death in the elderly.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely. Yeah.
if the antibiotics were not taken, there
Yeah.
would have been no space for these bad guys. Yeah,
And
that's why.
and fecal transplant is what actually
Yeah,
helps
yeah,
save their lives. So,
yeah. So the best way that's worked out to help these patients has been is something called fecal microbial transplantation, which you might have heard of.
yeah.
Yeah. So and it's becoming a routine. Just if you're thinking of
Can you explain
therapy.
this a little bit to the public so people
Yeah. Oh yes,
understand
of
what it
course.
is? Because there's
So
a stigma when I talk to anyone about fecal transplant, but if you
yeah,
could elaborate and
yeah,
explain
of
a little
course, of course.
bit.
So so fecal transplant is really it's only been given permission by the regulators to treat this nasty infection
Okay.
in the elderly. And basically, what it is that healthy donors donate a fecal sample to hospitals, and in London we are doing it at King's College is very big, Birmingham. Yeah, we've got established centers now, and the fecal sample of these, I mean, I wouldn't use the word they're athletes, but they're obviously young donors on top health, and
Health.
they've done all kinds of blood tests, they've looked at their microbiome, and as they make sure it's screened for all the baddies and they're not there. So
Okay.
this then becomes a sample for donation.
Okay.
And because the only way to save lives with this C. diff infection is you need to occupy that space immediately. Right? You can't wait for a billion probiotics. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Absolutely doesn't work.
It has to be fast.
Yeah, and capacity, absolutely. And now there are some, amazing ways, they're doing by enemas, by endoscopy, or giving capsules. The capsules go straight down,
Yeah.
and populate the gut.
Yeah.
And I'll share this story with you. The first fecal transplant happened in New York in 1958, 65 years ago. Okay, 65, 66, something like that. And there were
Oh, wow.
there were 3 patients, all with this infection, almost at deathbed. Nothing had worked, no antibiotics, and they did fecal transplant in those days when we did not even know what a microbiome was. And guess what? All 3 patients went home within 1 week.
Oh my God.
Isn't that amazing story? And I loved thinking about it again and again. I guess the only reason it did not, flourish is because I guess pharmaceutical companies want to make profits, right? so, so after 65 years, we've come back now again to fecal transplant,
Yeah.
to help with patients. But we know a lot more of what's in that stuff.
Yeah. But that's the thing as well. You see, they've done that in the 50s. That means we also need to appreciate the that through generations, clinicians or whoever, based on different cultures, whoever is the person who looks after other people's health, there is a pattern recognition. So people who care for healthcare providers, officially or not, and depending on the culture, you see things, you learn things, and then from experience, and then you try it and works, and then scientists should get there and investigate, and not just think it's is just not scientific, because there is something there. But as you said, there's no financial incentive for
absolutely. And I mean, on the same note, there's so that's really good, saving lives in the elderly. I would love to have this for my transplant children. That when a parent finds out that there's a diagnosis of cancer or leukemia, that before they come into hospital, that the parents make a real big effort, even more on their diet, to improve their microbiome. Then you come into hospital, and then you can take a sample of their own microbiome, store it, go through the operation, and then you can have it back again. I think that would be really helpful to this group of patients. I guess I'm going to have challenges with, and these are fair points. Coronavirus came from nowhere. So if you are a 6-month-old baby and you get somebody else donor's fecal transplant, or it could be your brother or sisters, for example. But maybe there is some new pathogen in there we don't know about, which could affect your life. But this is a decision. If you're so unwell at deathbed, you say, no, I'll have my sister's microbiome. I don't. Whereas, if you're a C. diff infection in your 70s, it becomes less important. You just want to live for whatever time. You just want to get better.
Absolutely. But a child, a newborn.
When a child, you've got a whole life ahead. You just don't know what else is in that microbiome that we don't know yet. It's some future pathogen. Maybe. So I can see that's a little bit more tricky, but I think having your own, the babies with more nutrition, or if you don't, or our siblings, I think is still a very attractive choice, and then an anonymous donor.
Of course, This is something that I want to talk to you about later, that I told you about, some ideas that we're thinking for Rejuven. Because there is a massive gap there is a need, and if you look after your kid and your kid's health, and trying to make sure that microbiome is well, so you might want to store some good samples, if your child ever needs treatment.
None like that, absolutely. I mean, in some ways, it's not a new idea, because people now are, especially very rich in America, like umbilical cord cells, and the experiments where young blood is anti-aging. So I think, I stored my own blood when I was 20. So storing a fecal sample is no different to me in that context.
This is not something that's that new. We just need now to start executing ideas. Oh, fascinating. Again, I'm really enjoying this conversation.
Okay. I'm enjoying it
too. Yes. Okay, so next question about breastfeeding, right?
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. So how crucial do you think breastfeeding is, though you have already said a lot, but there is a difference as well in the composition of milks and the oligosaccharides in different moms. But also, what advice would you give for moms who cannot breastfeed for some reason? I do think pumping is an option that is there as well, because sometimes in some countries people need to go to work immediately, have no one to look after the child, and you cannot breastfeed. I do believe pumping is something that can be done as well. So if you need to do something else, but also if you can't. So let me just summarize. How important is breastfeeding for this? If a mother is pumping, what would be the advice that you give in terms of storage of that milk, etc., and how good it is anyway for the microbiome of the child? And if none of these are options, what should mom do? to make
Okay.
sure that kid still has a microbiome that's being flourished.
No, I mean there are lots of questions there.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No.
You know a lot, and we need your help.
Yeah, I mean, my advice, now that we are learning a lot more, the first thing would be that mom's own nutrition and health. If the mom makes sure she doesn't take antibiotics herself, improving her own microbiome, because that's what the baby is going to have.
Yeah. Does that go to the milk? That transfers to the milk?
Yeah.
Wow.
Sorry, say that again.
The mom's microbiome, right?
Yeah, she's
from the vaginal, but the
Yeah.
mom's gut microbiome. How does that get to the baby?
Well, and I've been told that because the orifices are so close,
Yeah.
that it just automatically happens during childbirth. But there will be some staining, and the baby will pick
Yeah.
up. Okay. But the microbiome in the breast milk, of course, has got their own identity. If I can say that, is important. I mean, there's the only thing a mom can do is keep an eye on her own nutrition and make sure that she's not on antibiotics, and to improve her own microbiome, and hopefully it'll get transferred to the baby.
Yeah.
No, you can't do studies because every mom's milk will be different because everybody eats a different diet. But some things are obviously common, which are just, it's a superfood for the baby. Full stop. Yeah. No discussion.
Yes.
What is quite nice is, which I find absolutely amazing, in Japan, I did not know this, that they have this very altruistic attitude that mums donate blood in a hospital to other mums who can't breastfeed.
Wow.
Which is I thought, like, wow, that's so nice. And it seems like Japan has got the lowest rate of infections in babies because of this.
They're doing breast milk.
Yeah, so the mums who donate for other mums. That's lovely.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I know. So that's the first thing, if possible. The second thing is that the one thing that's irreplaceable in breast milk is there are lots of other goodies that you can't at the moment get in formula. Scientists are trying their best, give them a break in a nice way. I mean, for example, mom's antibodies. So she's passing her immunity to the baby, because remember I said it takes 2, 3, 4 years for the immune system, baby, to make their own good antibodies. So if the mom gives the antibodies in the milk, then the bad guys, the antibodies will attach to the bad guys and just take them out. That can't be reproduced in formula milk. So if a mom cannot breastfeed for medical reasons or whatever reasons, then you are more of an expert than I am. But as far as I can see, the researchers are trying their best to include prebiotics and probiotics.
Okay. What about pumping the milk when you pump the milk?
It's because the oligosaccharides will still stay there, the bugs will still stay there. It's absolutely the perfect thing to do.
Okay. Because I'm doing that when I can breastfeed, and because I want to make sure my baby Ella gets I mean, that's the best thing available right now, and some people might say, they're sitting fridge is good, is because everything goes to sleep, microbes go to sleep at low temperature, which is good, that's why you use them in the fridge. But even if the microbes go to sleep, once their baby takes them in, they will wake up because they've suddenly got food there, so that's completely fine. That's absolutely fine. And warm it in 37 degrees is okay as well, if you're warming the milk in a bottle warmer.
It should be fine because body temperature doesn't go above 37.